Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Today's video has been very kindly sponsored by Squarespace, more on that later, but the purpose of the video is to basically give you a complete chip strategy guide with all of the blanks and doubles that we've got coming up, and with lots of us having at least one or two, maybe 3 or 4 chips left. I thought it'd be useful to talk through when is the optimal time to play those chips, what is my current chip strategy, and what are some of the upcoming blanks and doubles as well. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So if you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know my general strategy for content is to try and give you the skills and knowledge to make your own informed decisions. So in today's video, I will talk about my current chip strategy. I'll talk about when I think the optimal times to play each of the chips will be. But hopefully you can come up with your own strategy as well. And hopefully you'll have a bit of an understanding about my thought processes between generally when the best times to play a wildcard and free hit are. So we're going to start with not season specific. So just in general, when is the best time to play a wildcard and when is the best time to play a free hit? Because I feel like there are various approaches to these two chips. I feel like bench boost and triple captain, you play a bench boost largely when you like your bench and you play a triple captain when you like your captain. But the other two chips, I think there are lots of different approaches and strategies to how you can play them. So let's start with wildcard. I think there are largely 4 different approaches to wildcard, maybe a couple more, but these are my favorite 4. And as you can see, I've got the gold badge, 2 silver, and then bronze. So it's in order of how I like to play the wildcard in general. It might change this season. It changes season upon season. But in general, this is how I like to do it. So the first strategy is to wildcard into a bench boost. So what I mean by that is normally you would bench boost in a large double game week. The reason I like to bench boost in a large double game week is because you get 4 players on your bench that hopefully both have 2 fixtures. All of them have 2 fixtures. So you get 8 extra fixtures by playing your bench boost in that week. Let's say that they all just get 2 appearance points in each game. You're therefore getting 16 points from your bench just by playing the bench boost in a double. So that's why I like to bench boost in a double. So what you can do is going into that big double game week, you can wildcard into the bench boost. So let's say double game week 34, you would wildcard in game week 33. You can't wildcard and bench boost in the same week, so you kind of have to wildcard the week before to set up for the bench boost the week after. The reason that I'm such a big fan of that is, like I said, you just get so many extra fixtures through your bench boost, but you're also setting yourself up really nicely for whatever that double is. So let's say double game week 34. You're not only building a really nice bench boost for that week, but you're also attacking what is probably quite a big double game week. So I feel like it's 2 wins there. The only small issue you might have, especially if you're not playing this late in the season, let's say you're playing the bench boost and you're wildcarding into that for game week 29, you're sometimes left with a very strong bench and quite a lot of money invested in your bench, which means that your starting 11 doesn't have as much money invested in it. That's not necessarily an issue, but it can be the case that then you start to fall back and you can't afford the players that you want to, and you're looking at your bench and maybe you've got like a £6 million midfielder there and like a £5 million defender. The way around this is to just try and build the best possible cheap bench. And I think this year in particular, with the likes of kind of Patterson, Bueno, we've had some really cheap defenders, the likes of Botman up at now 4.5. But there are some really cheap, good defenders. You've also got some cheap keepers. The likes of Ward has been excellent this year at different points, depending on when you've owned him. And also some of the midfielders like Andreas, Matoma, March. We've seen Yonto as well from Leeds at the moment. Greenwood gets some minutes for Leeds. So I feel like depending on the week that you play it, you could probably put together a very, very, very cheap bench, which is also a strong bench boost. So I think my favorite strategy for a wildcard generally is to wildcard into a big double and also into a bench boost as well. Another way that you can play it, which is a very close second for me, is to dead end into a blank and then wildcard out of that. So let's say you've got blank game week 28. Rather than free hitting or using a chip to try and deal with that blank, what you do is you dead end your team into that. And what I mean by that is you basically try and bring in players that have a good fixture, or at least have a fixture in 28. You kind of build and structure your team over the few weeks before that to deal with the blank with free transfers and maybe the odd hit. And then once you've got through that blank, you can then wildcard all of those players out that you probably don't want to own and set up your team for the long term. So it basically allows you to deal with a blank game week without having to waste or use your free hit. You can keep your free hit, or if you've already used it, and then you can wildcard out of that blank. The reason I like that is because you do get to save a chip, but the reason I don't necessarily like it as much is sometimes you just don't need to dead end into that week, and actually you could probably get away with just fielding 7 or 8 players and just wildcarding at another time. Sometimes blank game weeks aren't that great on paper. Let's say that you need to use a chip and you've only got 4 or 5 players. The reason that you've probably not got many players for that blank week is because all of the best teams don't play. So if the likes of like Man United, Arsenal, Newcastle and City are all blanking in a specific week, well then who are you free hitting to bring in? You're probably bringing in on a free hit or dead ending into anyway all of these players that don't have the best fixtures, or not necessarily the best fixtures, but they're just not playing for the best teams. So sometimes I think blanks can be a little bit underwhelming, and sometimes just putting out 6 or 7 players, not worrying about dead ending, not worrying about playing a free hit, just treating that blank as, yeah, I'm not going to have the best team that week, is sometimes the best strategy. So I don't mind this. If it's a particularly big blank and you don't want to use the free hit, I don't mind dead ending into the blank and wildcarding out of that. Sometimes, and this is when it's absolutely amazing when this happens, you can actually wildcard into a bench boost and dead end into a blank. So these first 2 strategies, you can actually do both. So this season, there's blank game week 32 and double game week 34. You can dead end into 32, wildcard in 33, bench boost 34. So in doing so, in those 3 weeks, you're doing strategy 1 and strategy 2. So I really don't mind that, and it allows you to save the free hit. So those are 2 strategies I like. Another strategy, which is the opposite of 1, is you can wildcard out of a bench boost. So rather than wildcarding directly into a bench boost, you can build a good bench boost with free transfers and maybe the odd hit, and then wildcard out of that. The reason I like this is because it does the opposite. What you're doing is you're taking money off of your bench. So because you've already played your bench boost, you just build the best possible 11 you can with maybe 1 decent sub, and you can remove some of that money from your bench and build the best possible first 11 that you can. The only reason I don't like it is I do think it is really difficult to build a good bench boost without a wildcard, unless you've already got a strong bench, or unless you just get really, really lucky with the way the fixtures line up. Usually it means that you're playing probably a suboptimal bench boost, which isn't necessarily an issue. Sometimes bench boost can be underwhelming, but usually to set up for a good bench boost, you'd want to try and wildcard either the week before or a few weeks before. And then the final option is kind of a whenever you need it. This is the more casual approach. I don't have an issue with it, but if you're watching this, you're probably a fairly engaged manager. And when we have a lot of the information already, it probably makes sense to try and plan as much as you can. So the best way to play a wildcard for me is probably not a whenever you need it. The good thing is this, if you just keep it and you're saying, I don't have a specific week, it allows you to react to mistakes, bad luck. It requires probably less planning as well, because you can just play it when you think, oh, my team doesn't look good anymore. But like I said, it's really not optimal, because then what you're going to struggle to do is navigate future blanks and doubles, and you've not necessarily set up your team in a way to deal with everything in the upcoming weeks. So those are 4 approaches. Like I said, I think 1 and 2 this year in particular, as we'll discuss a bit later, they can both be done with your use of a wildcard. So if you wildcard at the correct point in game week 33, you can both dead end and wildcard into a bench boost. So I like that, but these are all good options. If you have an early idea of when you're wildcarding, let me know down below. So largely, I think the free hit is a lot more straightforward about when you play it. You've got 2 real options, then a third option, which we'll discuss. Because you're only changing your team for 1 week, I feel like it's just a little bit more straightforward. So usually my favorite time to play a free hit, which funnily enough is probably not what I'm planning this year, at least at the moment, is usually to navigate a blank game week. So you play your free hit in a blank game week, which usually will allow you to go from maybe 5, 6, 7 players to a full 11 players, and also get the players that you actually want for that week. The reason that I really like this, as well as just giving you more players in that week, is it allows you to keep the players that you want long-term, and in doing so, have a stronger team long-term, and also attack upcoming doubles as well. Like I said, let's say there's a hypothetical, this isn't happening this season, I don't believe. Let's say there's a hypothetical blank where Newcastle, City, Arsenal, and Man United all blank, and you're left with only 5 or 6 players, and all of the players that you want to keep long-term are blanking in that week. If you don't free hit in that week, you're left in a position where you start having to sell players that you actually want. You'd have to sell the likes of, I don't know, Odegaard, Saka, Rashford, Shaw, and maybe you actually want to keep these players. So a free hit allows you to keep the team you want long term and deal with the blank whilst also getting 11 players out. So in my opinion, it is usually the best time to play it. The only thing that I don't sometimes like about playing a free hit in a blank, which I discussed in the previous section, is often blank game weeks are a little bit underwhelming, and sometimes getting 6, 7, 8 players out but saving your free hit might be worth it. Because if you're loading up on, for example, I don't want to attack any teams, but Leicester players against kind of like Brighton, which was the fixture in Game Week 21, yes, that could go well for you, but you're often looking at fixtures where it's difficult to predict them, and you're bringing in players from teams that you don't necessarily want to own just for the sake of putting 11 players out. So for me, sometimes blanks can be a bit underwhelming, and that's why in this case this year, I feel like the blanks can probably be navigated maybe without using the free hit. So the second option, which is probably the one I'm leaning to at the moment, is actually using a free hit to attack a double game week. You're still probably getting extra fixtures. So rather than having maybe 5, 6, 7 double game week players, you can of course get 11 double game week players in your team, which allows you to essentially get 22 fixtures from your starting 11. So immediately you're in a really, really strong position. You've got loads of fixtures. You can get basically the perfect team within your budget for that double game week. However, often you'll already have 7 or 8 doublers. So immediately you're probably only getting maybe an extra 4 or 5 fixtures, which is quite comparable to a blank week. So yes, it looks great on paper that you get 11 doublers, but usually in a big double game week, you'll already own some of those double game week players anyway. The other reason is, and I've made this mistake before, Sometimes you've got really good single game week players. So let's say there's a double game week where Man City play against Bournemouth as a single fixture, and maybe Arsenal have like an okay fixture against someone like a Leicester. In that week, if you were to free hit, sometimes you feel forced to get 11 double game week players out, and sometimes you'll drop your good players with a single game week fixture. And in doing so, you'll sometimes remove, let's say you remove Martinelli and he gets a 10-pointer, and you bring in a double game week player. Yes, they play twice, but maybe they're not as great of a player playing for a slightly worse team. Sometimes you can fall into that trap, and I've made that mistake before. So that's why sometimes I don't like the double game week free hit, because with a blank game week free hit, it's very unlikely that you'll make your team any worse. I've on very few occasions have I actually made my team worse by free hitting in a blank. However, on double game weeks, I've actually on 1 or 2 occasions made my team worse by free hitting in a double. So I think you've got to be a little bit careful there about which players you take out and which players you bring in. And then the third and final option is, again, kind of a get out of jail free card, even more so than a wild card, because a wild card's a permanent change to your team. A free hit, just if there's a week where you've got 5 or 6 injuries and 1 or 2 players look like they've been rotated for that week, or there are issues with postponements, just anything can crop up, you never know. Sometimes having that backup free hit is really, really nice. So you can just use it, like I said, as a get out of jail free card. If you have any bad luck, if you make any mistakes, the only slight issue with that, of course, is that you're only changing your team for 1 week. So if you've got like 6 long-term injuries and you play your free hit, well, then the week after, you're still going to have those injuries to deal with. So it's not a permanent fix, but it can help you in a specific week. Similarly to what we said in the previous section, again, it's probably not the optimal approach. If you're watching this still to this at this point, thank you very much. Make sure to like and subscribe. But it also means you're probably quite an engaged manager. And just using a free hit whenever you fancy it, whenever it feels like it, probably doesn't feel like the most optimal approach in this case. If it allows you to enjoy the game more, then absolutely you should go for it. So I generally, like I said, prefer to navigate a blank game week with a free hit. But this season, as we'll discuss in the next section, the doubles look potentially more enticing to use the free hit. So let me know down below if you have a preferred strategy, whether you usually go blank or double. With all that being said, let's take a look at the upcoming blanks and doubles, and then also take a look at my current chip strategy. So I did discuss this in a video last week, so I'm just going to sort of generally fly through it, because I don't think you want to overthink chip strategy yet. I think you want to have something in the back of your mind, but we're going to get updated news throughout the coming weeks, and I think you can change your chip strategy. You do not want to get locked in on a single strategy. We call that plan continuation bias and the Semmelweis reflex in psychology. They're 2 very well-known phenomenons where basically we're very stubborn. We create a plan and we reject all this new information because we've already created this perfect plan in our head and we don't want to change it. So you don't want to do that. You want to be flexible. You want to be dynamic. So let's just talk about roughly what we've got. So at the moment, we have, if you count Game Week 22, which at the time of recording, I don't know if that's 100% going ahead, we've got Game Week 22, 23, 29, 34, and 37 as confirmed double game weeks. We've then got 25, 28, and 32 as confirmed blank game weeks. Now, the only fixtures, again, at the time of recording that I know for 100% are confirmed is double game week 23. Outside of that, a few teams could blank, a few teams could double. It really depends on domestic competition progression. As I find out more information and as we know more about the fixtures, I will, of course, update you here on this channel. So I think largely double game week 22, if it is a double, it's just going to be for Manchester United and Leeds. Most of us own 2 United players, and most of us can get to 2 Leeds players probably quite easy, or a 3rd United asset. So 22, I don't think you really need a chip for. 23 is Arsenal and Man City doubling. Again, most of us probably own 4 or 5 from Arsenal or City already. I don't think you need to play a chip in that week. Maybe you could play, by the way, you could play a triple captain in either week. Triple captain's largely up to you whenever you want to play that chip. So 22 and 23, I don't think are that difficult to navigate. 25 is a tricky one because you could play the free hit in Game Week 25 because we have a confirmed blank for whichever 2 teams reach the EFL Cup final and the teams that they play in that week. So it could be Newcastle, Man United, Brentford, and Brighton, which are 4 teams that we've probably got quite a few assets from. The reason I don't really like playing a free hit in this week is because playing a free hit you usually do to try and deal with quite a big blank game week where there are only 2 fixtures that are blanking. So I feel like you probably just avoid buying any more Brentford and Brighton players. You keep your Newcastle and United ones, and you maybe sell 1 or 2 of them before the blank. Even if you're only fielding 10 players, I do not feel like this is necessarily the week where you would want to free it personally anyway. So I feel like most of our teams, unless you've got kind of 8, 9, 10 players from those 4 teams that blank, I feel like most of us can probably navigate 25 just through using free transfers and maybe a hit. Where I think it starts to get to a point where we're probably going to want to start playing our chips is from Game Week 28 onwards. So Game Week 28 is probably going to be the biggest blank game week of the season, with 4 to 5 fixtures being a blank. And then we go straight into double Game Week 29, which again is probably going to be one of the biggest double game weeks of the season, potentially as many as 5, 6, or 7 of the fixtures. 5, 6, or 7 of the fixtures being a double. So basically it'll be like 14 to maybe 18 teams we could have as many that would be doubling. Probably a minimum of 10 to 12. So a lot of the teams going to be doubling in 29. A lot of the teams will be blanking in 28. Trying to navigate a blank and then a double is very tricky without either a free hit or a wildcard. That isn't to say it isn't possible, it's just quite tricky. So I think in either 28 or 29, or both if you want to, you're probably going to have to play a free hit or a wildcard in and around those two. Just like I said, it's very difficult to deal with a blank and double and to do so effectively back to back, especially if some of the teams blank and then double or double and then blank, for example. So there, I think, is a good chance to probably play one of your chips, if not both. You then go into blank game week 32, which is a medium-sized blank, probably expecting it to be slightly smaller than blank game week 28. We're looking at 3 to 4 blank fixtures in that week. And then after that, there might be 1 or 2 small blanks, but largely that will be it for blank game weeks. And we're going to have a big game week 34 double. Probably one of the biggest of the season, probably a similar kind of level to 29. And then 37 will probably be slightly smaller, but again, still one of the biggest double game weeks. So to recap that, we've got 29, 34, and 37 as the 3 big doubles confirmed coming up. 25, 28, and 32 as the 3 blanks, with 28 being probably the biggest. There will be other blanks and doubles probably throughout the season, but there'll be small ones, a bit similar to what we've got with Double Game Week 22, where it's only 2 teams that are doubling. So we can't really predict that at this point. It will largely depend on so many different factors, mainly domestic cup progression and also European competition progression as well. We'll deal with that when they come. So this is largely the schedule that I would be working off. With all of that put together, keep this in your mind, maybe take a screenshot or take a picture. Let's move on to my chip strategy and how I'm currently planning on navigating these blanks and doubles coming up. So on your screen, you can currently see 4 chip strategies. Chip strategy 1 and 2 are my favored ones at the moment. This could massively change over the coming weeks, but it's just to give you a bit of an idea based on what I've just said around when I tend to play a free hit and wildcard and also the upcoming blanks and doubles. Currently what I'm roughly planning. Now you can see here there is no triple captain. The reason for it, well, it's twofold. Number one, I've played my triple captain already, so I'm not putting that into my strategy. But also triple captain is the one that you do not need to plan for. Yes, it's useful to know that there might be a good fixture in this week and therefore we might play it. You can play it in a single game week. You can play it in a small double. For example, we didn't know that Manchester United and Leeds would get rearranged into 22 until recently. So all of a sudden, Manchester United could have a really nice double game week. You could triple captain Rashford or Bruno in game week 22. So these little double game weeks pop up and there will be an opportunity to play your triple captain at some point. So I've not put it on here. Feel free to just add it in at any other double or single game week that you like. The other thing to note is, of course, there'll be lots of people, probably over 50% of you watching this, that have played one of your free hit wildcard or bench boost already. I can't go through strategies for every single chip combination, but hopefully the knowledge that I've given you and that you've learned in this video from the previous sections will hopefully allow you to decide your own strategy based on the chips that you have. So my probably favorite strategy at the moment is strategy 1, but again, this could change. So this is, again, dealing with all of the blanks and doubles, double game week 22, 23, and blank game week 25, all just with kind of free transfers, maybe the odd hit here and there. And also, in this case, dealing with blank game week 28, hopefully with free transfers as well. And then what I would do is free hit in the first big double game week of the season, which is double game week 29. So like I said, usually I would free hit in a blank, but here I'm free hitting into a big double game week. Then I'm going to wildcard in 32, and then I would bench boost in 34. So I'm free hitting in a big double. I'm dead ending into blank game week 32, wildcarding out of that blank into 33, and bench boosting in 34. The reason I love this strategy is because you're getting all of those extra players in 29. You're dead ending into 32, which allows you to deal with blank game week 32. You're wildcarding into a bench boost and into a big double, and you're setting yourself up really well for the back end of the season. So strategy 1, I feel like at the moment makes a lot of sense to me. Strategy 2 is a more traditional approach where you would free hit in a blank week. So in this case, rather than free hitting in 29, you're actually going to wildcard in 29 and set your team up for the back end of the season. And therefore, you're going to play your free hit in blank game week 32. So you're actually going to deal with the second blank, which looks like 32 looks like it will be slightly more tricky to navigate than 28. So you free hit in the second, free hit in the second blank game week, and then you either bench boost in 34 or 37. The reason I've added on or 37 is because you're now bench boosting quite far away from the wild card. It may well be that 37 is a slightly better week for your team for a bench boost. So those are 2 strategies that I really like. Slight variations on the same kind of theme. Bench boosting at the back end. You're just sort of rotating the wildcard and free hit around to either attack a double or to deal with a blank. Strategy 3 and 4 I do still like, and they may still be my approach, but I'm less keen on at the moment. So strategy 3 is to just use your free hit in one of the upcoming blanks and doubles. So either blank 28, double game week 29, or blank game week 32. So kind of feel free to use as and when suits your team. You then wildcard in 34, and bench boost in 37. So what you would do is you can dead end into sort of into 32. You could even wildcard in 33 here, but basically you would wildcard immediately into double game week 34, which looks like it could have some really nice fixtures. So you're not going to bench boost in 33 here. You just wildcard. You're not going to bench boost into 34, I should say. You just wildcard into 34, which allows you to play a bench boost right at the end of the season in 37, which looks like a really nice double game week as well. So this strategy kind of sort of moves everything further a little bit, and it also gives you a bit more freedom and when you sort of plan on playing that free hit. And then strategy 4, again, is a nice strategy if you want to. If you're looking at game week 28 and you're thinking, I actually can't navigate this, you could free hit in 28, which isn't an issue at all. It would kind of generally be when I would usually use the free hit. So free hit 28, you can then bench boost in anything from 29 to 33. So bench boost in either the double game week 29 if your team's set up well, or in one of the other single game weeks, or if we get a small double game week, you could. You probably wouldn't want to do it in blank game week 32, of course. And then you wildcard out of that bench boost in either sort of anywhere from 32 to 34. The reason I like strategy 4 is because, like I said, you're taking money out of your bench. So you're getting your bench boost out the way and then wildcarding into the final 5 game weeks to hopefully build a very strong starting 11 and take most of that money off the bench. So hopefully that makes sense. They are 4 strategies that are all based around the stuff that I've said previously in this video. I just think the strategy 1 and 2 look very, very strong. Strategy 1 in particular, it just does everything that I would want from those chips. It doesn't allow me to free hit in a blank, but like I said, the 2 blanks don't look terrible at the moment. So if I can navigate 28 and 32 without the free hit, I can attack 29 with a free hit, so 1 big double is dealt with. 34 is dealt with a bench boost, and because I'm wildcarding in 33, sorry, I may also be able to set up my team relatively well for game week 37 as well. I really do hope this video hasn't been too confusing if you're new to FPL and you're new to chip strategy. But generally, I think it's just good to try and think about what is the value of using a free hit and wildcard. When do you want to for your team? If you don't have one of those 2 chips, you need to change your strategy and think about when is the best time to play each of those chips to try and allow you to deal not only with that game week, but sort of the game weeks in and around it as well. And I think it's important to look long term as well as short term when you're planning for your chips. So guys, there you have it. That is today's video. Hopefully it was helpful. But before we wrap up, I do just want to give a massive shout out to Squarespace, who have sponsored today's video. Squarespace allows you to connect with your audience and generate revenue through gated members-only content. You can manage your members, send email communications, and leverage audience insights all on one easy-to-use platform. When it comes to setting up the site, it genuinely couldn't be easier, and I truly do mean that. There are tons of templates to choose from, as well as videos and support messages to guide you throughout the process. One of the things that I love about Squarespace is the ability to display posts from your social profiles on your website. So you can automatically push website content to your favorite social media channels so that your followers can share it too. If you go to squarespace.com/FPLRaptor or click the link in the description, you can get access to a 14-day free trial and save 10% on your first purchase of a website or a domain. So as I said, massive shout out to Squarespace. Do make sure to check them out. Link in the description down below. If you have enjoyed today's video, please do drop a like, drop a comment down below. Let me know what your current chip strategy is. Make sure to subscribe. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.